Hello, Patriots. Hope you're having a wonderful day, and welcome back to the Partisan Patriot podcast. My name is Corbin Williams, and today we're going to be looking at anti-First Amendment legislation by both the right and left. Here we go. So recently I've come to scrutinize the left for their feelings on the First Amendment. If you've seen my previous clips. But now I'm going to look at the conservative aisle of things and really focus in on the fact that no one of either party really cares deeply about free speech. We have Donald Trump and his American flag burning executive order, and I have it here. You can go and read the executive order for yourself, but to give you a concise meaning of the whole thing, he introduces it and says, we're all American people. There should be patriotism, and to burn the American flag is a clear expression of violence, that to desecrate the American flag is violent and provocative. Flag burning, regardless of whatever flag it is, has been protected by the First Amendment. An extension of it anyways, freedom of expression, for years. And, this executive order just really hones in on that. But what I really want to focus on is the fact that Donald Trump explicitly calls this an expression of violence. So like I said a second ago, flag burning has been protected by the First Amendment for years. So obviously, there is a difference in what Trump believes flag burning is and what it has been up until this point. You see, you can burn the American flag, as said until this point, for any reason, given that you're not inciting violence. And what Donald Trump has done here is he has extrapolated those who do burn the American flag in violence and in hateful attitudes. He's extrapolated those instances to every instance of burning the American flag. Extrapolation is very dangerous. For instance, I say I'm Christian. Not all Christians are like me. For instance, some Christians believe homosexuality is okay. Some Christians believe that Israel should deserve all of our nukes and money. That's not my Christianity. But because it's what a large majority of Christians believe, I could falsely be drug into those groups. So, when Donald Trump extrapolates the idea of American flag burning to it's all violent, that's very dangerous. Who gets to decide what this symbol means? Who gets to decide what burning the American flag really means? That's going to be the main question of the show tonight, is who gets to decide what hate speech is and what it looks like? That's the main question. We're going to switch gears to the Democratic side of things now and look at California's Senate Bill 771. All right, so I have the bill here on my notes. The people of the state of California do enact as follows. Section 1. California law prohibits any persons, entities, including corporations, from engaging, aiding, abetting, or conspiring to commit acts of violence, intimidation, or coercion based on race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, immigration status, or other protected characteristics. So, I guess along with the question that we have tonight of who gets to decide these things, who gets to decide what hate speech looks like, who gets to decide what a protected class of characteristics looks like? Because that's directly mentioned in the bill, that you can't conspire or commit acts of violence against protected characteristics. What are protected characteristics? What does that mean? Who is the protected class here by this law? Who are we protecting? Anyways, we'll get back to the bill here. California has a compelling interest in protecting its residents from targeted threats, violence, and coercive harassment, particularly when directed at historically marginalized groups. That interest is especially acute in light of rising incidents of hate-motivated harm as documented across the state as follows. So here are some examples of what the bill is attempting to prevent. Example 1, the Los Angeles County Commission on Human Relations reported in December 2024 that hate crimes involving anti-immigrant slurs increased by 31%, which marks the highest number since tracking began in 2007. Incident 2, the Human Rights Campaign and the Center of Countering Digital Hate have documented a 400% rise in anti-LGBTQ disinformation and harmful rhetoric on major social media platforms. Instance 3. According to the Department of Justice data, anti-Jewish bias events rose by 52.9% and anti-Islamic bias rose by 62% in 2023. Instance 4. A 2023 study by the nonprofit Global Witness demonstrated that paid advertisements promoting violence against women, including language calling for beatings and killings, were successfully placed and distributed on major social media platforms. Those are the instances that they're mentioning directly here in the bill, that they are trying to prevent, that they are trying to knock out. Will continue. In light of these trends, the legislature affirms the urgent need to ensure that California's civil rights apply with equal force in the digital sphere. So what they're trying to do is take the rights that you have in public and implement those into society when it pertains to social media. This can be very difficult, and we're going to see exactly why as I continue further. The purpose of this act is not to regulate speech or viewpoint, but to clarify that social media platforms, like all other businesses, may not knowingly use their systems to promote or facilitate or contribute to conduct that violates state civil rights laws. Basically, what the bill is saying here is we want to prevent violence that is promoted by speech online. And that can be a very difficult thing to be done because, as questioned earlier, and as will be questioned as we continue through the video, who gets to decide what hate speech is? We have a Republican example of flag burning that at all instances consist of violent, provocative nature. And now we have a Democratic point of view that suggests violence is anything that affects historically marginalized groups or whatever protected characteristics means. Who gets to decide these things? What do these things mean? Who provides definition for these things? So it's important to note that this bill is only pertaining, or only regulating, rather, social media platforms. And even to then, it's only regulating social media platforms that make a gross profit of $100 million a year or over. And so a civil penalty of not understanding what happened, the social media platform accidentally promoted something that was, against a protected class, again, whatever that means, it is $500,000 if it's an accident. $500,000 if it's an intentional production of hate speech. Then they're fined up to $1 million. So these social media platforms are going to be held under very serious scrutiny in this state of California. So I don't like this bill for many reasons. For one, it attempts to regulate what is and is not allowed and okay on social media because some people get offended. Bruh. I really don't like this bill because it's a very slippery slope into state censorship, where the state, or the government rather, tells us what is and is not okay to say. And it starts with social media, but what's the next step? So it indirectly affects our First Amendment because the government cracks down on social media platforms, and the social media platforms crack down on us as citizens using the app. I think there is a very serious, easy to make Eighth Amendment argument here for the social media platforms. Because for those of you who don't know, the Eighth Amendment is protection against cruel and unusual punishment. I would argue that taking anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million of a social media platform is cruel and unusual given the crime of not understanding what their algorithms are promoting. Because it's the algorithms that study the individual. So if the individual makes posts that seem edgy, Instagram or Twitter or Facebook is going to give them more edgy content because it's the content that keeps them engaged with the app. It's going to be very complicated. It's going to be very interesting to see how the social media platforms attempt to regulate their own apps according to this legislation. That's California Senate Bill 771. And now that we've gotten a look at the right's encroachment on the First Amendment and the left's encroachment on the First and possibly Eighth Amendment, now we're going to look at a bipartisan encroachment on the First Amendment, and that is House Resolution 867. This bill expands an existing anti-boycott law to include certain boycotts imposed by international governmental organizations, or IGOs. Current law prohibits various actions by U.S. persons, individuals, or entities in relation to boycotts imposed by foreign governments on a country which is friendly to the United States. To take this government language and put it into easier terms, the government doesn't want us criticizing a friendly nation by the influence of a nation that may or may not be friendly. Now, the reason House Resolution 867 is such a big deal when it pertains to the First Amendment is now you literally can't have prejudice against a foreign nation that is friendly to the United States based on the view of another nation, not the United States. Because if you do, you're the bad guy. Isn't it strange that the Democratic and Republican parties will have complete distaste for one another, especially when it comes to, constitutional ideology, and come together when we're talking about foreign countries? Why does diplomacy matter to both Democratic and Republican parties matter more than the civil problems? In other words, why are we worried about everywhere else instead of the United States? We don't have, at the least, affordable health care. Our social welfare programs are going to fail because our government cannot promote population growth. It simply cannot. We have a lack of workers to provide for social welfare programs, and our country is going to fall on its face. We have problems with such large magnitude that our legislature could be focusing on. But instead, we argue about those things, and we all come together as one body, as the United States, to support foreign countries and to suppress Americans who don't appreciate that support. Now we're going to talk about BDS laws, anti-BDS laws. So we're going to wrap back to the conservatives here in just one moment, but anti-BDS laws are legislation that regulates against those that engage in boycott, divestment, and sanctions, that's where BDS comes from, with regard to the Arab-Israeli conflict. Many supporters of the State of Israel have often advocated for implemented anti-BDS laws which effectively seek to retaliate against people and organizations engaging in boycotts of Israel-affiliated entities. Earlier, with House Resolution 867, it was a little blurry. It was, we have a certain idea of a country, the U.S. government does, and we don't want the people having a different opinion of that country, especially one that's influenced by another foreign country. So, especially if that country is friendly to the United States, it's like we could be talking about any country right now. But when you look at anti-BDS laws, it's much more specific. It literally states that you cannot talk bad about Israel or these people will come after you. It's right here. Google it. Do the research. Anti-BDS laws. You will find who it's okay and not okay to talk about in American politics. Our First Amendment has been held to the scrutiny of another nation, of our opinion of another nation? Why does our opinion of a foreign nation dictate how much freedoms we get to have? Isn't that crazy that your opinion of a foreign country that is not the United States can dictate how much freedom you have? Come on now. Come on now. The enemy is not the left. The enemy is not the right. The enemy is the person who gets to dictate what everything means. That's the enemy. These enemies, so to speak, are found both on the left and on the right of the political spectrum. We've seen that today. We've seen that in Donald Trump's American flag burning executive order. We've seen that in California's 771 bill. We've seen that in the House Resolution 867. We see that in anti-BDS laws. Freedom of speech is cooked, guys. It's over. I would say as Americans, to save the country, we need to do two things personally. Every American needs to do these two things personally. We need thicker skin. We cannot be easily offended by anything that anyone else says. Period. We need to be open-minded, and we need to be open to conversations, and we need to be open to people disagreeing with us. We can't just sue someone because they made a mean tweet. Along with that, along with having thicker skin, we need to be nicer people to one another. Politics has become so polarizing to the fact that no one wants to talk anymore. Everyone's so afraid of offending someone else or being offended themselves that we don't talk anymore. We don't debate anymore. We don't converse with one another any longer. And it's sad. Where did the love for your neighbor go? American politics has failed because we've stopped caring for one another. To wrap back around to the First Amendment being held to standards, especially when it comes to our own opinions of a foreign country as American citizens, I'll take us back to Project Esther. For those of you who have never heard or have no idea or concept of what this is, the initial Wikipedia source will tell you Project Esther is a project of the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank based in Washington, D.C. that aims to suppress pro-Palestinian protest and what it claims as anti-Semitism. The effort has received support from several evangelical Christian organizations, but no major Jewish ones. We hold Israel to be so high and mighty that we are willing to suppress the First Amendment of American individuals, especially when it pertains to pro-Palestinian protest. But the Jewish organizations, as mentioned in the definition, there's not a lot of mass support. There's not a lot of mass support for Project Esther among Jews when compared to evangelical Christians. That is so strange. Just something to think about, something to dive into. Our government is supporting something that the people who it would be directly affecting or supposedly directly being positive for don't support it themselves. So maybe the face value for what our government says they're doing is not to protect the people it's saying it protects, not to benefit the people it says it's supposed to benefit, because they don't support it themselves. Maybe, guys, our government is not telling us the truth. Maybe. Do some research, look it up. I encourage you to. It's not something that I can talk about in great depth here on the show. Say no to liberalism. Say no to conservatism. Say yes to rationalism. Say yes to common hope for humanity. Because early politicians, and I won't even say politicians, I'll say the founding fathers, had various disagreements to the level of religion. They didn't care. They would disregard the disagreements they would have with one another because they all knew that each other individual that they were working with had a deeper purpose. When Thomas Jefferson and James Madison were arguing about how the country should be built, they didn't have such a large prejudice as to murder each other, because they understood that if they came together, they could make something great. They made the United States of America. And I would hope that as Americans, we can return to that commonality, that it's okay if you disagree with me. And it's okay for me to disagree with you. Because at the end of the day, we all promote the American success. We all promote American values. We all put America first. Unfortunately, our elected officials cannot say the same. That's what I have for you guys today. Bit of a sketchy episode, I'm not gonna lie. Bit of a more edgy episode. We'll see what happens. Maybe I get a strike. Whatever. So, Patriots, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Partisan Patriot podcast. And until next time, have a good one.